Hi guys, how's it going? So here we are learning something new about Figma today. I've been covering about a lot of different content in Figma just to make sure that we are able to create that one app that we've been working on, which is called LinkedIn, supposedly swiped to apply for jobs. Right? So here we are when we're talking about all of these different components and we have created a couple of things. What I want to do now is see how this starts to feel in action. Right? So although I know that we have not created anything very stable and great till now, but what I want to do is, as and when we are progressing over here, I just want to make sure that everything works all right. Right? So when we keep on progressing, we might have a slightly different idea every time that we're creating, but we want to make sure that everything that we are creating all this while works. Right? So that's why we are here, and today we are going to be talking about prototyping. Yeah, that is one of the main features in Figma, and that's why a lot of UX designers, they use this particular app, because prototyping, which is to see how these things work or to see how it works as it would finally look like. This is not development, because development is an entirely different ball game. I have absolutely no idea about that. But what we can do is, as and when we progress, we'll just see if things work, if the entire foundation that we are working on works together or not. So here we are. We have created these screens in the previous videos. We have the intro scene, then we had the login screen, and then we had a couple of components that we had created. Now what I want to do is see how this flows from one to the next one, right? And that's what we will see over here. And to begin with, I will tell you something very simple. So all this while we have been working over here in the design window, right? That basically means most of the things that are there, the tools that are there, are oriented towards making sure that your design works right. Now today we are going to be in the prototyping zone. So what happens over here? It's basically telling Figma or the entire project how to move from one place to another. So if I click over here, and I can see, if I just move my arrow, you can see these small white dots that I end up, and these have a plus symbol. These are all similar. All of these dots do the same action. What I want to do is move from this screen to this screen when I do certain clicks, right? So that is what prototyping is. So if I just click on over here, you will see what is happening. You can see that this is supposedly on click. That is the interaction that is possible. So there are multiple types of interactions that you can choose: on click, on drag, hovering, pressing key or gamepad, mouse enter, mouse sleeve, mouse down, mouse up, or after delay as well. Right? And then after this, there are multiple different variations: navigate to, back, set variable mode. We have not talked about any of these. Conditional scroll to, open link. All of these are slightly complicated and slightly more nuanced when we are going to be working on those specific ones. Open overlay, swap overlay, and close overlay. These are the few that you'll probably be able to guess very easily, right? So this is what happens. Then you can choose the screen or wherever this is supposed to go. What sort of animation is necessary? So instant would be just cut and then you move there. Dissolve moves slowly. Smart animate has certain set of features that I would want to show you today. And then there are a couple of others: move in, move out, push, slide in, slide out. They are again very similar. Couple of options over here. Now I think we've talked about a lot about what this is. Let's see this in action, right? So the first thing that I want to do is, this is not the interaction that I want. When you're working on Figma, you need to understand there is one major thing, that every prototype moves between different screens. So if you have a new screen or a new frame, that is what you might just want to navigate to. You can also do this within components. So for instance, if you tap on something, the component color should change. That is prototyping on the components as well. So that is one thing that you can do. The other thing is, of course, moving from one screen to another. And because most of the buttons have their own specific use case, we should have those buttons being the ones that drive the action forward. So what happens over here is, let's say over here from the login screen, I would want to change and go to the next button. So this login button is the one that I want to create the interaction on. So when I just click from over here, it should land up on this screen. This is the flow that I would want to, right? and this is exactly what we want to do. On click, navigate to which is move to the other screen, go to login, perfect. Now over here there are a couple of options. Let's see how these play out, and let's do the simple interaction first. So I will hit intro over here, and I can play this either present or preview. Present is when it goes to a new screen and you can see the interaction in whole. You can do a small preview by hitting shift and space, and you would be able to see this directly over here in this window right here. So if I select this, hit shift and press space. There it go. So I do have a screen that has come up over here. If I click on any random place, you will see that there is a overlay that comes up over this button, which basically indicates that this button is the one that has an interaction plan for it. So when I do this, click it over here, you can see the new screen did come in, right? So that was the interaction. We can change the interaction also over here. So there was a move in. So let's say we have a slightly different move in, and let's say we elongate the amount of time. And then I do this, you can see that this interaction gets updated in real time. So we can do this over and over again. Here is the reset button, so restart prototype, so where we started off from, and this is what I can see. So this is basically how you create a prototype or an interaction in Figma. If I do it a step slightly differently, this is the one that I really like, and it's called Smart Animate. So Smart Animate basically operates on a very simple fundamental function. Animate those layers that have been there, and just make sure that actually, let me do this. It's too difficult to explain. Let me just put this on Smart Animate, restart, and push it from here. So you see what happened? So there are certain aspects of the screen which are similar. So the LinkedIn logo is similar, and the other buttons are basically just coming in, being dissolved. So what is happening? So that is, I think if I just push, make sure that both of these LinkedIn logos are at the same position. So I do see that this frame is at 70 and 89, 11, and for this one, 70 and 82. I think this is the reason. If we just remove the auto layout from both of these places for once, so if I remove this, and then I make sure that this logo, the one that we're talking about, is at a certain position, let's say 76. Okay, so this is what we have. We'll remove the layout over here, auto layout over here as well, and this is where the auto layout is. Where's my logo? Yeah, there's my logo. So 70 by 90, and that's what we will do over here also, 70 and 90. And now if I play this, you see the other set of layers, they dissolve in by themselves, and whatever was there remains consistent. A better way to do the same thing is if I have this entire frame over here as well. I'll create a duplicate over here, and this frame is supposed to be part of the intro frame. Okay, so there I have the frame is outside, it's okay. And now if I do play this, there. So basically what is happening is Smart Animate makes sure that the previous set of layers or the overlapping or the similar set of layers are in the same position, and then everything else gets modified accordingly. Let's do this slightly differently. So what if, so let's remove this from over here. So let's try another sort of interaction over here. What if when I do click on these buttons or these input fields over here, the other buttons disappear and we end up in a place where we can just type in. So what if all of these items disappear? So let's see. The first thing that I will do is create a replica of this. Now I do have this over here. Let's call this username and password. Okay, so this is the place where I want this to work. Now over here what I want is the other things need to disappear. So frame 5 should disappear, frame 6 has the username and password, and this frame which has the text, maybe I can just change the text over here. So let's change this to forgot password. be the one. Click here. Let's keep it something simple. Okay, so we do have these sort of buttons. Now what I want is from this frame, when there is tapping action on the username or password, any of those fields, it should reach over here. So what do? We open up the frames over here. So within frame 7, there is the initial one, then the divider. Here is frame number 6. Now frame number 6 is where I would want this interaction to happen. Now you see what I have been doing. Instead of just operating directly on a layer, we can also create an interaction based on the frame. We've done this very similarly in one of our earlier videos, if you remember the sections and the frames. So you remember the interaction could be pointed from a section or a button directly to an entire section also. So we'll get back to that. We'll see if that is necessary over here, but here we are. On click, navigate to username and password as a screen, smart animate and ease out. Okay, and now let's see what happens. So maybe I can just turn this divider off as well. So there it is. Okay, now all of this looks good. Let's see how the flow works out. So if I click on this right over here, there is a very nice smooth animation that happens, right? So this is exactly what smart animate does. It matches the layers which are there in the previous frame and the upcoming frame, and it operates them, or it moves them accordingly as necessary. So you see, don't have an account and sign up, they also change, but they sort of dissolve instead of moving. Those become forgot password and click here. So that is what smart animate is. I want to give you another simple idea where, let's say, from this frame we have a screen, but what if somebody wants to sign in with Google? So I'm not going to create an entire screen for that, but let's say if I do have another frame, let's duplicate this login screen over here. I will remove this interaction and call this overlay sign in. Okay, so instead of creating everything, what I will do is I will remove everything over here in this layer and delete all of this. What I want to do is probably just create a simple overlay, and for this overlay we actually don't even have to make sure that the entire frame is as big, because we want the overlay to cover somewhere over here. So we'll probably animate this or modify this slightly differently, but what I have over here is a simple screen, a rectangle, and let's just add some text in it. Third party sign in overlay. Okay, let's just make it slightly more aesthetic, keep it at somewhere in the center, just to give it a slightly different. So over here I will probably just do something like this. Looks good. Maybe I can just add another variation of this over here. Okay, so what we have done over here is we're not sticking to the styles right now, because that is not the intention, at least at this point in time. So I have created a simple overlay. Now let's see how this overlay also pans out. So when I click on this login button, again go to prototype. Now for any of these buttons, so let's say this is the frame, the component. Now from this component, I would want it to land here. When does it land? On click. Okay, this is good. Navigate to, no, that's not the one that we want. We want to open an overlay. So here is an overlay, and there is a move in option. I would want it to move in from the bottom. Simple enough. Centered, probably in the bottom center. This is good. Close when clicking outside. So when I click outside the overlay, that will also get closed. Great. And probably the same interaction for the LinkedIn one as well. Everything looks similar. Great. Now let's see how that pans out. So now you can see that there are two different places that can be, actually three different places that can be clicked. So I can click over here, username and password. Okay, that's an option. I can also click on sign in with Google, and there is my overlay, right? I can click on outside, bring that sign in button for LinkedIn, and that is another variation of how I can do it. all of this is good. All of this is how these interactions happen. Let me tell you one other way, right? So if you remember, if I have a button like this, right, the click here or the sign up, maybe I can open an overlay directly from this. So what if I wanted to do this, and let's say for forgot password, sign up, all of these are supposed to land up on the screen. That is also possible. Now with directly on this component, I will put in this as the option. So on click on any of this button, now that depends wherever that button is, even in places that we have not fixed it correctly. So what that means is, now with everywhere where this button is, I will end up opening this overlay sign in. So even if I was on the intro, you remember that we had not set up the sign up, but you can see that this new overlay, this new interaction has directly been created because that component is now defined as having that interaction by itself. Right? So what happens if I go on intro, I can click on two new buttons over here, login and sign up. When I click on sign up, it opens the overlay over here. And login, we already know what will happen. And there is a new screen that we have created, right? So this is what prototypes are. Simple enough, not too complicated. Let's do one other thing. Let's create a new component just for the sake of it and push it to a different interaction. So let's see how that works out. So what I'm going to do is create a simple back button, and maybe I can just do this by using that small. Actually, I probably should have directly started with this. We do not need this. This is supposedly my back button. And within my components, all of this is good. So here I do not need interaction. Right now, maybe this is a sign in button. Can make it medium. Actually, I can disconnect it, remove it from this style, give it a slightly different color. Let's say this looks ugly, probably just give it a slightly different color. Okay, now this looks good. Make this slightly bigger. There. So we have a back button. Now what I want to do is, every time that this button is clicked, so I add an interaction directly from over here. On click, back. Right? So wherever this is supposedly, that will take you to one step back. So now that I have created, let's take this from the assets. We have not named it anything. Maybe I should have done that. So component 1, I do see probably this over here. Create this as a component. Okay, so that is a component. Now this component is called back. Great. Now over here, maybe along with LinkedIn, I can do this. I can put a asset over here, say back can probably go over here, somewhere on the bottom right, and we'll do another one similar over here. No, that's not what we want. Design, hold Alt and drag another variation over here. Great, okay. So in both of these cases, we have set up this back button. Now let's see what happens over here. If I do play this, login, I know that these are the places that we can do. If I also click over here, it takes me back. Right? So that is another variation of what you can do with a different button altogether. So probably hitting it back. Yeah, isn't that nice? So maybe I can probably polish this somewhat more and make it a better style. So if I just go back over here, let's create a simple ellipse. This is supposed to be underneath it, and maybe we can just design this slightly better. Something like this. Decrease the size. Remove this and probably add a simple stroke. So stroke can also have 0.5 thickness, easy, and the color would probably be slightly different. Maybe just this, okay, and this can have a simple drop shadow over here as well. So all I'm doing is I'm changing the appearance of the button so that it looks slightly different. Now on the screens I can see over here that this component should also have photo affected. This is supposed to be part of this over here. Okay, great. So everything, this is becoming my component. I can see that this is how it looks on both screens. Great, and that is how select this and go back at all points in time. Isn't that nice? I'll do a simple short video about creating these small micro interactions basing on this prototyping over here in Figma. I will make sure that those are interesting enough and those are something that we can accommodate within this entire plan that we have. In the upcoming video, we'll also start to create an idea of what the app should look like and the interaction that will be necessary to make sure that all of that works. So make sure that you check that video out. In the meantime, make sure to like this video, share this with somebody you think is working on Figma and needs to learn interactions in prototyping, and subscribe to the Design Up channel. I will come back to you in the next video on something more about Figma. Stay tuned.